right, this next one, I had a game, and I have played this 2400 rated opponent in 4 games. And I won 3 of them, lost one of them. I lost the very first game, and then won 3 in a row. And this was the fourth and final game. In the third game, I beat my opponent out of the opening without too much effort. And then the next game, I have the same color, and I feel like out of the opening, my opponent was showing signs of just playing for a draw. So, how can you try to put pressure on your opponent and beat them with black when they're competent and trying to play for a draw? Which, in my mind, it's a coin term in chess, but I hate it because playing for a draw limits the player who's doing it, with white especially, because you're limiting yourself to 2 results. You should always play for a win. Always. That should always be your psychology of competition. Because all possibilities are open to you. And I can show you exception positions where it looks like, king and knight versus king, rook, and pawn, and the knight wins. I've seen studies that work like this. It's ridiculous, but, these things definitely happen. So always be looking for that opportunity. Don't limit yourself psychologically. All right, so in this game, I played a line that I have not studied too much yet. And I go with an accelerated dragon, and my opponent goes with a classical setup, which I find relatively toothless. And it's one of the most popular things white can do. He's got a number of different moves, knight b3, f4. You can just sit and chill. And I'm like, okay, I'm basically playing in English a tempo behind. Since I play the English a good bit, we'll put this in the repertoire, why not? I don't have to really learn anything for black. I don't mind playing against the Maroczy bind. And the nastiest variations, if I really feel like it, you got multiple options to either go directly into the Yugoslav attack of the Sicilian dragon, or black's got the better part of 3 reasonable moves that he can play in the critical position of the opening. So I go d6. And h3 was the first move that I'm like, okay, this really doesn't do anything. It's kind of, I pass. Now I feel like I'm playing white. Takes. And here, because my opponent was waiting around, I decided to do the same. I believe the best move, according to theory, is bishop e6. And you just kind of chill in the position. But I was feeling a bit more aggressive. I play a6 first with the idea that I'm going to play b5 and bishop b7. Also, if I play bishop e6 immediately, I didn't like the idea of the bishop watching this pawn, and I'm probably going to need to play a6 before rook c8 anyway. So I was baiting with a6 that if he goes a4, now I go bishop e6. So I don't have to worry about the pawn. So he's trying to restrict me. If he doesn't restrict me, I'm going to play for b5. And then a move which said, all right, I'm just going to trade. If you trade without having a purpose that it improves your position, it kills winning chances. So as soon as e5 is played, I basically consider this like a draw offer because it kills the advantage that white had in the position. Takes, and now if I trade queens, that gives him something in the position. He gets an open file to work with. So no, I'm not interested in trading. In fact, I'm going to put a tempo on your bishop, and I'm looking at rook d8 at the right moment here. Oh, bishop takes. Okay, why are you trading off the bishop in an open position? All right, then knight d5. Okay, a liquidating combination. So here's a good part to pause your video, and understandably, I'm playing to win. Yeah. So how can I get the most out of the position? All right, go. Well, bishop takes. Check. King g7. And I figured he was going to play knight takes c8, get rid of my bishop pair, and we play a bishop of opposite color position. But the thing that stuck out to me was after rook b1, at pretty much any time, whether he takes the bishop or not, I have an in-between move. Queen takes. And this bishop controls the queening square of this pass pawn, and that dictates the rest of the game. That's all I need to know. I'm going to make it work now. There'll be some shuffling, there'll be some other stuff, but as long as I keep my dark square bishop, that guy's going to be a winner. Bishop f3. I'm like, all right, well, he's threatening to take. I got a pawn in hand. I got my passer. Bishop e6. Rook a7. And more than likely, rook d8 somewhere in there was better. Queen f3. And bishop f6. So this is one of the few points in the game that white could have improved. And I saw it as soon as I played bishop f6. There's some nasty stuff in the air here, but I think black more than likely is fine. Queen e3 is actually the best move, as it's hitting the rook and you're looking to have to sack. But after rook takes, I take the c2 pawn, bishop pair, you know, that's, I think worst case scenario, I'm holding. So bishop d5 was played. All right, take on c2, that pawn falls. I'm not too worried about bishop takes e6, as his knight could run out of squares pretty quick. So knight c6 immediately. Well, let's take time for the in-between move, and let's stay behind our winner. Connect rooks, no problems. And here's another instructive moment. I think this was the only time in the game that I thought a little bit, because we need to consider all the safe squares for the queen. a4, e2, f5. And if I go to f5, he's going to take and double the pawns, and I'm not a big fan of having to double the pawns. If queen a4, I was nervous about my queen getting a decent square in the future, and she may even get trapped. So that only leaves queen e2. And if queen e2, rook e1, I can go back to c2, and then finally go to f5 if that's my only option. So if you can repeat the position, you should. Because if you feel that the best line is queen f5 and queen takes f5, and you can get that line a move later by passing, you should definitely do it, queen e2. But this gives your opponent more opportunity to go wrong. And instead of rook e1, which I wholeheartedly expected, my opponent played knight d4. Now I get an improved version of the position, and I get exactly what I wanted. With this queen off the board, I don't have to worry about anything. And this bishop completely dominates this knight. And again, I'm controlling the queening square. Knight c6, nope. Knight b4, we got a runner. And I think the engine already evaluates this as like +5. You want the bishop? Nope. Nope. And push some. Okay, now I'm happy for you to have the bishop, because my pawn is well advanced. Now this is an endgame technique thing. What's probably the best try for white here? White is objectively lost. But what is the best attempt? So I feel like checking here is the best attempt, because you want to try to get behind the passed pawn. And the best move for black is going to be rook e6. And at least you tried. My opponent played king f2. I'm now behind my passed pawn. And every time you push, it makes his rook weaker and mine stronger. g4, trying to keep my king out. h5. Takes, takes. And now all we need to do with our extra space with our rook is wait. Because one way or another, we're going to get a square that we want. If he comes back this way, I'm going to attack the rook and the pawn's going to queen. If he comes this way, I'm going after the pawns and I'm going to gobble them up. So let's be efficient here. Should you take or should you leave the pawn on the board, and why? I think some people go, well, it doesn't matter. You're just going to take and win the pawn anyway. Okay, but better technique in my mind, and it's not this in particular position, it's all positions. You want to maintain the highest probability of winning chances. And if you can win both pawns, why not do it? g5, fix the weakness on g4. Now king e4. I have the sideways opposition. He can't do anything. If he moves the rook, I push the pawn. So I pass. Now I go after the pawn. And when it becomes clear that he's going after my pawn, remove all hope. Takes. Push. Check. Check. And he resigns as the f-pawn is falling. So overall, the move of the game that I just really was like, okay, was e5. And it made the situation worse on bishop takes f6, giving away the bishop pair. I didn't have to do anything special in this game. I was given an advantage out of the opening. I have the two bishops in an open position. Most of the time, if you just play solidly, especially if your opponent is intimidated, they are going to give you an advantage. You just have to wait on it. And keeping tension has been something that I've struggled with technique-wise for years, because I was afraid of the complications or scared I would miss something if the position was too complex. I've definitely been working to focus on endgames more in my training, point A to B thinking. I guess I'm starting to match my age generationally in chess with processing positions where I'm leaning more on endgame skill and long-term ideas rather than brute force calculation. But hopefully you found this game interesting and some of the ideas interesting. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you'd like the video. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. Completely free to do so. And if you haven't already, please subscribe.